I recently bought The Home Doctor with my own money to find out if this book is worth owning so I can share with folks just like you whether you should pick up The Home Doctor or not. Is it worth an investment? Hey, I'm Jack, and I'm a co-founder of SkilledSurvival.com and TheResilient.Life.com, and I've been sharing my strategies and my survival skills and my preparedness solutions and philosophies and everything I know from a living a resilient life and preparedness perspective online since 2013. So if you like this kind of content, if this is stuff that you enjoy and want to know more about, make sure to subscribe to my channel. And while you're at it, go to the description below and you'll see my free preppers checklist. So snag that as well before you go and then make sure you got everything on that list. Okay, like I said, we're going to be going through this book in detail so I can give you a really great independent perspective on whether you should buy The Home Doctor. Okay. Specifically, we're going to cover who wrote The Home Doctor, who this book is for, what's missing, what's in it, and thoughts and recommendations and pros and cons of it. First, we need to figure out who wrote this book. Because anytime you discuss medical information and medical knowledge, it's important to listen to qualified professionals only. Why? Because no one should take medical advice from their barber or their hairstylist, right? So if we're going to trust what's in The Home Doctor, then we must investigate those who wrote it. The Home Doctor was written in collaboration between three authors: Dr. Mabel Naives, Dr. Rodrigo Alterio, and Claude Davis. So let's go over the credentials of each of these folks. Dr. Mabel Naives is the head surgeon of a unit of breast pathology and general surgeon at Caracas University Hospital in Venezuela. She studied at the prestigious European Institute of Oncology in Milan, Italy, under Professor Umberto Veronesi. Hopefully I got that close. The European Institute of Oncology was inaugurated in May of 1994. It's a nonprofit comprehensive cancer center. The institute focuses on prevention and diagnosis, education and training, research and treatment of cancer. Based on my extensive online research, these are all legitimate institutes, and they're still working on new medical advancements even today. So it seems to me that Dr. Naives has the proper medical credentials to write a book such as The Home Doctor. Next, Dr. Rodrigo Alterio is currently working in the surgery department at UT Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas, Texas. Most of his ongoing research is based on surgical oncology. UT Southwestern Medical Center was established in 1939 and has many notable laureates who went on to win Nobel Prizes in their medical fields. And in 2017, Dr. Alterio lived and was the primary care physician of an indigenous community called Camarata. Dr. Alterio served this primitive community located deep in the Amazon jungle, which was many hundreds of miles from our typical everyday modern civilization. During my research, I found the Caramata community is very remote indeed. I can only imagine the immense challenges Dr. Rodrigo Alterio had to face serving this community. This type of medical experience and expertise are exactly what you want for a book like this. Dr. Alterio has first-hand experience performing medical treatments with limited resources. I believe Dr. Alterio has all the credentials necessary to help write an at-home medical book like The Home Doctor. Okay, finally we have Claude Davis, who is an author of several popular preparedness and survival books such as The Lost Ways, The Lost Book of Remedies, and The Forager's Guide to Wild Foods. But he's not a doomsday prepper, okay? He said, instead, like me, he wants to teach people how to live a more resilient life. His goal is to avoid placing his hands or that of his family into the hands of others during a widespread emergency. That's why he spent his life honing his knowledge and experience for wise preparedness strategies. And he continues that mission by sharing his expertise in The Home Doctor. I believe Claude was paramount in translating some of the difficult to understand medical jargon into a handbook regular folks like you and me can understand. So who's this book written for? Now, officially, you can see that this book is for every household, right? It says it right on the front cover. It tells you exactly who it's for. pretty much everyone. But that's a bit more marketing than helpful, right? For example, if you're already a medical professional or a certified EMT, well, this handbook may be too simple for you. On the other hand, if you faint at the sight of blood or think the human body is disgusting, or you're content to remain part of what I call the fragile masses, well, then this book is not for you either. It's for those of us who crave to live a more resilient life. Folks who want a physical book on hand full of medical know-how in case the world goes dark. And that's why this book is a must-own for anyone who worries about the future and takes living a resilient life seriously. But hold on, why live a resilient life? Well, because humans, we're terrible at predicting what's coming next. For example, we don't know when the next disaster will wipe out an entire community. It could be a natural disaster, such as a wildfire, a windstorm, blizzards, and tornadoes. Or perhaps the future will bring about another world war, or a nuclear holocaust, or failing nation states. Nobody knows these things, and if they claim they do, they're lying. But with that said, we do know for a fact the future will not be smooth sailing. Want proof? Just look at history. It's full of one atrocity after the next. So instead of being fearful, you and we should focus on what we can control. And that means living a more resilient life. And one small step towards resiliency is investing in physical books, especially ones chock full of wise medical knowledge. So if you're nodding your head right now, you agree with me. And that makes you an ideal candidate for investing in something like the Home Doctor. You are who the Home Doctor was written for. Okay, now we know who wrote it. We know who it was written for. Let's take a look inside this thing and see what's in it, what's missing, and whether it's covering all our bases or not. Okay, so let's take a sneak peek inside the content. Now, before I crack it open a little bit, let's talk about its overall length, its shape, its dimensions. This medical handbook comes in at 304 pages long. Now, that might not seem like a lot for a medical knowledge handbook. I mean, I've seen some massive medical books before, but it's quite long considering that it has a rather large footprint. It comes in over 8 inches wide, nearly 11 inches long, and over a ½ inch thick. And this extra long, extra wide book is a distinguishing feature. Why? Because this allows you to clearly see all the colored images throughout clearly without having to squint, without having to have a magnifying glass. Just to think how important that would be mid-surgery. Now, following any medical procedure at home will never be ideal. But at least with the Home Doctor, you'll be able to see what you should be doing. Let's imagine a book that was half its size, right? In this case, sure, it'd have double the pages, it'd be thicker, it'd be 608 pages or so, but good luck squinting at those pictures and seeing what you need to do. Right out of the gate, one of the first things the Home Doctor does is it has this disclaimer page right here, okay? And it wants to make sure you understand that it claims to be an at-home, worst-case medical handbook. So it's designed for an apocalypse. It's for a disaster so horrible, professional medical advice and help are not an option. It's not for avoiding the doctor during normal times, right? This fact is essential to understand, and the Home Doctor, again, makes that very clear in its disclaimer. Let me give you a quote from the disclaimer. Quote, "This book was created so that people can read it and learn from it in case of an extraordinary event like an apocalypse that changes the world as we know it, learning to the collapse of the state, society, medical system, law and order, and the dissolution of social fabric. In this regard, this book's purpose is to save some of that knowledge that will be lost in this widespread collapse. It is not meant to treat or cure anyone. Do not use this book for that purpose." Okay, now that that's clear, what are some of the topics within the Home Doctor? There are many medical topics and subtopics throughout this book. So instead of boring you by going through every single one, I'll just share a few that I found interesting. First off, there's some of these topics, such as 10 medical supplies that you need to have in your house, an ingenious way to stockpile prescription medications, medicines that are safe to take after their expiration date, the only 4 antibiotics people should stockpile, and how to preserve your mental health in spite of a rough situation. Okay, so those are obviously topics that were probably written by Claude Davis, I would guess. They're more in the realm of how to prepare with your supplies, how to mentally prepare for a medical emergency, right? That's probably Claude Davis's specialty right there, is my guess. Let's talk about some of the topics that are covered by the doctors that we talked about before that are related to the human body, diagnosing, and maybe even fixing some issues depending on the situation. So it covers skin and skin appendages. It covers burns and scalds. It covers fungal infections, insect bites, nail trauma, head and neck issues. It covers gastrointestinal systems. It covers urogenital systems. It covers musculoskeletal systems, cardiovascular systems, endocrine systems, nervous systems, immune systems. So it covers the entire human body and all our systems and all the things we need to do to diagnose, maybe prevent, and maybe cure possibly some of those things. How to treat them properly at home with the type of medical knowledge and medical systems that we have in a worst case scenario. So as you can see, it covers the gamut of medical topics. Okay, but what's missing from the home doctor? Well, of course, no 300-page or even 600-page medical book can cover everything. Heck, even after years of medical school and lifelong learning, you still wouldn't know everything that you needed to know for every medical scenario. Nor would you want that. That level of detail is confusing, and that terminology in such a book would render it meaningless for folks like you and me. And that's where I think the home doctor actually gets it right. It provides enough information to help with basic medical care, if professional help is not available, but not so much information to overwhelm or confuse. Okay, so let's go over to my final thoughts, my recommendation, and some pros and cons. This is not the only medical book I own. I actually own this one and plus another one or two more, okay? This one here, the Prepper's Medical Handbook, has been the book I've recommended in the past. And this is a book that I just recently got that we're talking about today. Now, I don't mind having multiple books like this, okay? I like having multiple sources of information because a second opinion in a medical situation is never a bad thing. Second, I have an audience like you who's watching this now, and you trust my opinion. Like I said, I'm a co-founder of SkilledSurvival.com and TheResilient.life.com, and people depend on my advice. So I own all these medical handbooks because I need to figure out which ones are the best and worth owning. Like I said, I own this medical handbook called the Prepper's Medical Handbook, How to Provide Medical Care When You Can't Rely on Anybody But Yourself by William W. Fogarty, MD. And it's also a high-quality medical handbook and one that I've recommended to other people in the past. But now that the home doctor is available, I actually think this is the better option. Why? Well, we talked about it because it has better and larger images. Plus, it includes some additional preparedness information, such as the stockpiling medical supplies and medications. And these two strategic differences make this a slightly more comprehensive and easier book to read, understand, and follow. Now, if you already own the Prepper's Medical Handbook, you can pass on the home doctor, especially if money's tight. But if you want a second medical opinion in a DIY medical situation, then having two books is never a bad thing. And perhaps you'd prefer to upgrade to one with better images. If that sounds like you, then yes, you should also invest in the home doctor as well. And if you don't own either of these books yet, then the home doctor is the one you want. It's a solid medical handbook for folks like you and me who want to live a more resilient life. In summary, let's go over the pros and cons of the home doctor. Okay, pros. It's written by legitimate MDs and a preparedness expert. It includes very large colored images so you can better see what's going on. Has comprehensive advice throughout without being long-winded or overwhelming. It's well organized and includes large font for easy reading. Okay, here's a few of the cons. It's a bit more costly than comparable medical handbooks that I've seen. You also, if you buy it through the website, you're going to get upsells. Those are more products behind the original order that they try to add on to it. So you end up maybe paying more, but you might get even more books and information that you might want. Okay. If you don't want that stuff, just say no, 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 and you'll get only just the book you want. This won't fit in small backpacks. It's too long and wide. It's not that heavy. Like I said, it's 300 pages, but it won't fit in small backpacks. It also includes some very stark and frank images of the human body, if you know what I mean. So you might want to keep it away from young, curious children. Okay, so that's it. I think if you've made it this far into the video, I think you're obviously interested in maybe picking up the Home Doctor. If so, go to the link in the description below the video and click it, and it'll take you straight to the order form to pick this up, okay? And make sure before you go, you snag my free preppers checklist, okay? So until next time, I want you to prepare, adapt, and overcome.